Hello, everybody. This is Vivek Iani, and welcome to another episode number 4 of Engaging with Millennials. Thank you for joining me today. Today, we're going to be talking about another interesting topic, which is something that I've also personally experienced myself. I think a lot of you also would have experienced yourself. It is how do you deal with peer and parental pressure? I think this is one of the key things that is common amongst the millennial generation. A lot of peer pressure and parental pressure, and it is one of the reasons for a lot of generational conflict, right? The reasons why you have a lot of misunderstandings, especially with parents, especially with people from a different generation, because of the different expectations and understanding and things like that. So we're going to be discussing about this topic, and to have this conversation with me, I have a very special guest. His name is Chia Te Chien, and he will be sharing how he has also managed to handle the peer pressure that he's experienced and the parental pressure. So please put your hands together to help me welcome DJ.
Hi Vivek. Thanks for having me today.
Hey,
Okay.
hi, DJ. It's good
Hello.
to have you here as well. Thank you for being here and being willing to share about this topic. So, before I go into the questions, can you do a quick introduction about who you are and what you do?
Okay. So my name is De Jian. So some of them call me DJ lah. Okay. So of course I graduated from NTU. I studied mathematics before I joined AIA where I'm here right now.
Ah, very interesting. So, DJ, I want to ask you, right? Peer pressure, parental pressure. I'm sure you've experienced it, but what I want to know, the first question is like, which areas have you noticed that you've experienced a lot of peer pressure and parental pressure?
Okay. So of course before that I will have to ask like people around. So have y'all ever heard of like your parents saying study hard so that you can be, let's say, the next doctor, lawyer, teacher, or even the next minister, so on and so forth? Or your friends will be more of a spending pressure, whereby they will introduce new places, new cafe, new fashion, new technology, and in the end, what we do, we will try them or buy them. So these are some of the things that actually I encountered before. But of course, what I realize is, of course, parents will be on careers, on studies, and for friends will be a lot of spending pressure lah.
Okay. Yeah, I've personally experienced it myself when I was, I think, in my secondary school and junior college. The peer pressure was should I take science or should I take arts, right, for my subjects? And from my parents, it was like an expectation that, okay, my dad's in accounting, so I should also go into accounting. So a bit of pressure on the career side of things. My friends actually thought I'll go into IT because I'm Indian. And I think a lot of people tend to think that way. So a lot of peer pressure. Okay, I should do well in IT, but IT was one of my worst subjects. I don't understand IT the way other people do, right? So this is some of the experiences I've had myself. So DJ, how do you deal with this peer pressure and parental pressure? Because I remember being very stressed. In fact, I didn't deal with it. I just accommodated with the pressure because back then I didn't know any better. But how do you deal with peer pressure? How do you deal with parental pressure?
Okay, so before that, let me share a story with y'all lah. Okay, so back then, like what we guys say lah. So in poly, I used to study common engineering. So like after sem one, I'm able to choose one of the eight courses which is offered to me. So I don't know where to go. You see, so what I did, I asked my friend, I asked my family, I asked my relatives, and they come out with one answer lah. So during that time, there is one very hot industry which is the aerospace industry lah. So back
Mm,
then, of course, they are saying that Seletar is up and coming, and of course, job there are like a lot of opportunity after I graduate, and aerospace every day is flying. So
mm.
so in the end, I went in lah. So this is maybe a form of pressure as well.
You succumb to it. Okay.
But of course, how I deal with it. So you see, after that, I decide to make my own choice. So I decided to join like NTU mathematics. So you see, like
Mm,
back then, to me, I feel that maybe I may want to go into teaching. Okay,
mm,
so this is one area that I was looking before. Then Then, but in the end, after going mathematics, people are like saying that, hey, you know that computer science or data analyst or maybe AI is one of the
Mm.
hottest uh, coming forward. So
Yeah.
people was like, hey, are you like being pressured to join the course? But in the end, that time is I made my own decision. So yes. Then after that, I decided like without a finance background, I joined this financial industry. But
Okay.
of course, why I come in is more to because used to I used to be volunteering since after
Mm.
secondary school. So right now I'm still am. So most of them will be like uh, academic stuff, so mentoring and or even like ad hoc event. So I enjoy like working with people. Then you see like sometimes like working with people to help beneficiary to benefit them. And
Mm.
of course sometimes when the beneficiaries was like say thank you to me, wow, that make my day. So I'm like so happy after hearing that. So this is one factor that why I decided to make my own choices to come over, because even without a finance background, because I enjoy helping people. And over here I get to help people to grow with them. And you see like and I'm able to work here lah, so it's a two in.
Mm.
Mm.
Right. So you are not new to doing something that's against the typical expectation. So they expected you to go to aerospace, and then you eventually decided what's right for you, what was best for you. Right. Even when it comes to career choices, you graduated with I think a degree in mathematics, but you decided again what was more important to you. So when you did those kind of change in decisions, did they come after you, in the sense like, did they have a pushback, did they question you, right? Did they ask you, why did you not listen to our advice, or why did you do this kind of decision? Did they ask you these kind of things? Did they question you?
Okay, so yes, of course, but I'm grateful. Okay, so for example, like my parents, so they are like advising me. So of course, to get a more stable job, to get maybe a 9 to 5 job. Okay, but I'm grateful to them that they actually never say that no, you shouldn't join. So they just give me to do what I want in life, and I'm really grateful for that lah. Then of
Mm,
course,
mm.
for my friends, like just like you lah, because like people thought I was like introverted. I should be belonging to, let's say, the IT industry or
Yeah.
engineering industry. Okay, so of course, but I'm grateful that those friends are still with me. Okay, so we still go for makan session, we still hang out, we still exercise. So of course, we get to enjoy the time together, and of course, trying to get fit together. And
Mm,
and of
mm,
course to my wonderful like colleagues or mentor, so they are always here to support me, so they
mm.
always encourage me. And of course they share with me their personal experience so that I can grow as well lah, as a person and as an advisor.
Oh, wonderful. It's really important to have people who also see your point of view, who understand, and having mentors like that are really important for us to feel validated that, my decision is not a crazy decision. Whatever we are doing is, it is been tried and tested, and there is a way that you can move forward in this, space and time. So, for you, other than the mentors at work, did you go to anyone else for support when you were stressed out due to peer pressure or due to parental pressure?
So of course, sometimes I do hang out with friends, so we chit chat about it. Of course, every job has their own stress. So of course, like after talking to them, they also have a lot of stress themselves. So coming from different people, all jobs are same
Mm,
thing, having stress. But what we should think is, of course, to think positive. Okay, then to think about why you are in here. So like
mm.
the previous session where people are asking like to know your why. Uh,
Yes, yes,
so I
yes.
feel like it's still important for me to know my why, to be able to help more people out there, and this is what keep me going lah.
Wow, yeah, so important, because when you know your why, it's like you don't need outside validation. You are already internally, you validate yourself, your decisions, and you feel a lot stronger from within. You don't need to rely on outside people for support, right? And it gives you the strength to even go against the grain. Yeah, I totally agree with identifying your why. Okay, so when you took all these decisions, did you have to so-called justify? That means logically, do you have to say like, this is what I've understood about myself, this is based on my understanding of my personality, right? This is why I feel like this is the best decision for me. Did you have to justify yourself? Was it easy for you to justify?
Okay. So like after knowing Enneagram, I realized that my trait is one of the trait that fall into pressure easily. So why?
Okay.
So why? Because of course to avoid conflict, lah. So of
Yeah.
course this is one test that I did before, but somehow okay like what I did, I didn't even fall for all these peer pressure sometimes or parental pressure, because I in the end I still make a stand. I
Mm,
still decide like what is good for me in the future. So for
mm,
me, of course, I have to make like some decision. Then how I make this decision is rather simple. Like what I learned in math. Sometimes logic tell like okay, logic tell. So we must be logical. We must know like analyze like why this is important for me. Then
mm,
of course sometimes we can go online to do some research, or ask friends or ask families member for help. Of course, all these make out a big process, like decision making process. But sometimes going to professional advice is important as well. So
mm.
all these come into my mind. Then I will do all this before I myself need to make that final decision, which is very very important.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So we are talking about how to deal with peer pressure and parental pressure. So I'm going to quickly look into the chat to see if any of you have actually been experiencing this. If you have, is it more of a peer pressure that was harder to handle, or was it parental pressure that was harder to handle? Please type in the chat, type in the comments, and share what are the challenges you actually had when it comes to dealing with this, because we understand it's not always the same, regardless of which family you're from, right, or which kind of a social circle you have, right. Dealing with these peer and parental pressures are one of the issues that we have. And in one of our previous episodes, we actually talked about this thing called ghosting, right? Ghosting is one of the ways that people deal with pressure. They avoid the conversation, right? And you can go check it out as well. We've talked about ghosting. So some people know how to deal with it, some people don't know how to deal with it, and those who don't know how to deal with this kind of pressure are the ones who are struggling to communicate and to handle the stress. Okay, so what we want to know is from you. Okay, so we have in the chat, they are showing that, okay, the one that is harder, Clarence says, is parental, right? Parental pressure is harder because, in a way, being in an Asian society, it is harder for us to go against our parents, especially when they are the ones who have been feeding us, raising us, right? So that thing about being filial to your parents, at the same time pursuing what you really want, right? Which may be new to them, may be unexplored, like so many new careers today, like YouTuber, influencer, TikToker, right? There's so many new kind of jobs that wasn't there back then. And I think to talk about this topic, I'm going to invite the next gen mentor we have here, right, Victor, to share his experiences about how to deal with the peer and parental pressure from his point of view. So let's put your hands together to welcome Victor.
Hey, hi, I'm Victor Lim.
Hi, Victor. So we were just talking about how to deal with peer pressure, how to deal with parental pressure, and in the chat they are saying that it is harder to deal with parental pressure. So I want to ask you, right, Victor, what are your thoughts on this peer and parental pressure topic?
I think it's important to be able to understand as a child. I think it's important for them to understand their parents.
Mm,
What are they like? I think naturally the parents are concerned, right?
yeah.
But they need to understand why is the parent saying this. Example, we look at Enneagram. When we know the Enneagram type, let's say if it's the type 6 parent, their
Mm,
emotion is fear,
mm, mm,
worry. They worry a lot. So they worry about the child. So a lot of these things they do or they tell the child to do is because they are actually worried. So they tend to, if it's an unhealthy trait, type 6 that's unhealthy, we call it, then the tendency is always to look at, not so bright side. They always look at a bit more pessimistic, right? So they are extremely careful and they are not risk takers,
Yeah.
right? They want you to play it safe, so there's a lot of fear. So when you understand your parent belong to this category, this situation, then I think it's important to address that fear.
Yes.
Sometimes the fear is really unfounded. So the child, it's both sides like the parent and the child, right? So the child got to make effort. So it's important that you understand your parents so that you can explain to them. And likewise, if you meet somebody who is what we call a type 8, a challenger, very aggressive, they expect the child to do this, do this, do this, do this. Just listen to me, do what I tell you.
Yeah.
I mean, this kind of parents, then you understand that, they're very driven people, you see.
Yes.
So I think that helps when you understand your parents. Yeah, how to communicate across, because people are different, and you have to deal with different people differently. You cannot treat everybody the same.
Yeah. So, when youths want to do something that is not what their parents are supportive of, right? How can they, even if they know the type of the parent, how can they assert their point of view without being dismissed by their parents by saying you don't know anything, right? So sometimes parents tend to say that you don't know anything, you don't know the real world, right? And then they totally dismiss the points of the youth. So how can they assert their point and let them know that I'm being serious about this thing? This thing matters to me, and I want you to support me in this. I want your support in this. How can youth do that?
I think definitely the way you communicate, I think this is where communication skills must come in. Yeah, because if the parent thinks that they're always right, they have their reasons, right? It's all about their accumulative experience in life. That's why they think it must be like that, right? So everything is back to their experience. So I think the child need to understand that and being able to have the skill to communicate such that the parent would first open the mind, to let the parent know that, let hear me out, right? I think that part, to be able to open the mind, is the key. When you can open the mind, then you can explain. When the mind is shut,
No,
very
no
hard.
use. You can try all you want, but they won't take in anything. Yeah.
Open the mind.
Yeah, and I believe that anagram is very useful because when you can use the same language to communicate with the parent and understand what exactly they are looking for in terms of the topics or the pointers, and the way you communicate also, it actually helps them to open up and be a little bit more receptive to the ideas, and they will be a lot more open-minded in that sense. Okay, so we are talking about how to deal with peer and parental pressure. So for those of you who have dealt with peer and parental pressure in your lives, please do share in the chat, share in the comments. How have you dealt with it? Did you have to go through fights, or were you able to have a decent conversation, an open conversation, open two-way dialogue? Were you able to have that? And what do you think are the obstacles that actually obstruct having these kind of conversations? Please share it in the comments, and I'm looking forward to hear from you guys. Okay, so we're going to wrap up this session about this topic, but before we do that, right, I believe that we can do a lot of things to help the youths to really communicate more effectively, and a tool that helps them to do that is the Enneagram tool. So Victor, can you share a little bit about how Enneagram can help them to be a lot more self-aware and better communicators?
Anagram goes very deep into first of all, being aware of why you do certain things in a certain way. So it's the underlying motivation, right? And this is also like accumulative. You're born with certain things, and then throughout our life, we're being nurtured, experiences. So we have already developed this over a long period of time. Generally, these things don't change. Yeah, but it's good to be aware so that you can improve. If let's say there are a lot of unhealthy traits, and then you're not aware of that, then it's going to really affect you in a negative way. whether it is your work, your relationships with your colleagues, or your personal relationships. So people are blinded in some ways because we can't see. It's like, if you wear a necklace, you can't see, other people can see. Everybody can see your necklace, but you cannot see it yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So anagram is to really be very, very aware of. The important thing is to look out for, are you having a lot of unhealthy traits? Because that's going to really hinder your whole life. And I literally mean it's really long term, because it may be throughout your life a person may never discover, I have so many of these unhealthy traits that I need to address, because it's going to affect everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Relationships,
Yeah.
your journey in life, your whole life. So it definitely helps. And then when you understand other people, then you would be able to know how to communicate with them and know why they do certain things. For example, if you are speaking to a person or a boss who is a perfectionist, it's very, very tough, because it's always, my way is correct. Listen to me,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, and they are so clear that they want to do things their way, right? So you need to understand. Oh, but generally, these guys they have already thought through everything. So very often they may be right. It's the manner they deal with people that might be
Mm,
very critical.
mm.
They don't give you chance, they will just whack you. If you're wrong, you don't meet their standards. Their standards are very high. So you talk to somebody whose standards are so high, then you better understand, where they are coming from, why their standards are so high, what are their expectations.
Yeah, yeah, and it helps you to adjust your behavior so that you can basically impress the person and get in their good books as well, right?
Yeah. You better not be wrong when you deal with a perfectionist. You better do all your homework. Make sure everything you say is correct. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
That's how
yeah.
you should deal with them.
Okay,
You
okay.
cannot be wrong.
If there's some perfectionist parent, then the young person will be like, wow, Chala, I really need to do all my homework before I convince them about why this is something that I should be supported in, right? Yeah. So a lot of people are saying that the parental pressure is one of the things that that is hard for them to kind of overcome, right? It's very hard to convince the parents, and I agree, it is not something that is very easily done. But once you know how to communicate with them, once you understand their personality, it'll become a lot more easier to communicate, as opposed to feeling very stressed out about it. Now, we're coming to the end of this as well. So I'm going to ask you guys the last question. And after that, we're going to be sharing a little bit about the freebies that we'll be giving out later on. So the last question to both of you, DJ and Victor, is what's your advice to youths who are dealing with a lot of peer and parental pressure right now?
Okay, so I go first, Victor.
Yeah.
Okay, so for me, I feel that we must always do the right thing. So make our own decision in life. Of course, we should do sometimes our own research. We should listen to advice. We should seek professional advice as well. But all this is just a process only. So in the end, we make our own choices. And of course, right now people are talking about YOLO. So we can YOLO, but we shouldn't regret our own decision lah. So
Yeah.
make it work. Yes. So
Absolutely,
yes.
absolutely. Because if you follow someone else's decision and then you have to live a life of regret, thinking, oh, wow, why didn't I listen to myself? Why did I listen to the other person for 10, 20, for the rest of your life, sometimes even, right? So don't do that, right? I think fantastic advice, DJ. Victor, what about yourself? What's your advice?
When a child is young, they will always say, my mother say this, my father say this. And they grow up a little bit older, then say, my friend say this. It's always my friend. Right?
Yeah.
Until one day they really grow up really and they say, I say this. So
Ah,
they reach this point, and that's maturity, right? So
yeah.
I think it's important today's youth do not succumb to pressure.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
heard about this thing called blackout challenge,
Okay.
where people hold their breath until they pass out.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
quite
In
scary.
TikTok.
It's on TikTok.
Yes, 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 yes.
So peer pressure can cause, it's very dangerous. So kids can if they succumb to this thing, then it can be really, really dangerous. So I think it's at the end of the day, I think it's important that every child has that values built up in their life. Their
Mm,
values will guide them all the things that they don't have to follow the herd, follow my friends or under the car pressure. So it's really about being healthy. So back to Enneagram again. So my suggestion is everybody needs to do this Enneagram. Understand yourself.
Yeah.
Then that I'm prone to be this kind of person that really cannot handle the pressure, succumb under pressure. Then they need to know, and then they need to grow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
how to maybe make a decision that even may be unpopular, but it don't matter.
Wow. Yeah, wonderful. I really love the way you said, when we're starting out, we look up to our parents, then we become our friends, and then only after we mature, then it's like, this is what I want to say, right? I think that was a fantastic point. I totally can relate to it. I went through the stages myself as well. So for those of you who want to, for those of our audience here who want to learn more about how they can get an Enneagram session, what should they do, Victor? Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, they can sign up, scan the QR code, right? They can get a test and get the results. And after you get the results, we can do a coaching session. And I think that a coaching session I've been doing for so long, and everybody learn a lot. Everybody is interested to learn about themselves, to know who am I, who
Yeah.
is the real me.
Mm.
Sometimes really, if nobody tell them, they are just blindsided, they do not know, they can't see. So I think Enneagram really helps people to thoroughly, go deep and understand themselves. And that is going to help them in their life. Spending
Wonderful.
that 30, 40 minutes would be really, to me, a lot of people found it really, really useful, and they're very appreciative. So I think that it's really great to do this test. Scan the QR code, submit the forms, and then sign up, and then you get a result and the coaching.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for being so generous with this. And for those of you who also sign up, you are also entitled to win some really nice gifts as well. You'll get Grab and Starbucks vouchers as well. So don't hesitate. Scan the QR code and you'll be able to be eligible to win all of these prizes as well. So thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me on this conversation on how to deal with peer and parental pressure. It's been a pleasure speaking with both of you on this topic, and thank you for your insights. And I will see you guys next week. I'm going to end the session today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys. Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank
Bye.
you.